The Supreme Court has never been directly asked to decide whether a president can use the Constitution's pardon power to pardon himself or herself. But today, the current president shared his own view on that issue. Here's Paula Reed. The president tweeted this morning that while he has no intention of pardoning himself, he believes he could do so if he wanted. He wrote, "I have the absolute right to pardon myself." Now imagine reporting for jury duty and learning that you might be sitting in the first ever criminal trial of a former president. You could be one of the people deciding whether Donald Trump becomes a convicted felon, something that could permanently shape his political future. And while you're being questioned, the defendant himself is sitting just a few feet away. This is a man whose career has often relied on intimidation. That's exactly what 96 New York residents experienced on a warm spring day in Manhattan. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was much colder. At one point, every seat in the gallery and jury box was full, but within minutes, about the time it takes to say hush money, around 50 potential jurors were dismissed. They admitted they could not remain fair and unbiased. Based on today's events, finding 12 impartial jurors plus alternates may take quite some time. As for Trump, CNN reporters inside the courtroom say he appeared tense, even biting his lip. He barely spoke, only 3 words during the entire session. But outside the courtroom, it was a very different story. Now, what happened next is truly unprecedented. Frankly, it's hard to even know where to begin because this is unbelievable. Court officers actually grabbed him by the arms and escorted him out. Let that sink in. A sitting president of the United States dragged out of a courtroom like an ordinary defendant because he could not control his behavior during a hearing in the New York fraud case. This happened on January 6, 2026. Yes, January 6th. The symbolism alone is overwhelming. This wasn't even the main trial. It was a deposition scheduling hearing, just a procedural meeting to organize dates and logistics. But Trump couldn't handle it. He interrupted the proceedings 12 times. He whispered words like hoax under his breath. He stared down witnesses. Judge Engoron repeatedly warned him, saying, "Stop disrupting this courtroom. This is not a circus." Trump ignored every warning. Finally, during the 12th interruption, he shouted, "Rigged," at Attorney General Letitia James's legal team. That was the breaking point. Judge Engoron ordered the court officers to remove him. They physically grabbed Trump by the arms and escorted him into an antechamber. The entire moment was captured on video. Footage of a US president being forcibly removed from court has already gone viral. Over 100 million views in less than 24 hours. But before continuing, let's pause for a moment. Mainstream media has lost credibility. That's why we created Pump Politics, to bring you real events, real context, and no corporate filtering. If you want to stay informed and support honest reporting, join our community. Now, back to the story. Trump later claimed that the judge will not allow us, and suggested that the judge believes he is above the Supreme Court. Trump said, "We've got a serious problem with this judge." For context, the judge Trump was referring to, Judge Juan Merchan, has not yet ruled on Trump's request to be excused from court to attend his son's graduation next month. However, the judge did inform Trump that he must appear in court next Thursday, when Supreme Court arguments on presidential immunity are scheduled. While acknowledging the importance of those Supreme Court hearings, the judge reminded Trump's legal team of a key fact: Trump is a criminal defendant in New York. Here's why Trump was required to attend this hearing. His deposition is scheduled for January 15th. During that deposition, Trump must testify under oath about false statements he made in his financial disclosures. These include claims that his triplex apartment was 30,000 square feet when it is actually just under 11,000. Claims that his golf course values were wildly inflated. Claims that Mar-a-Lago was worth $700 million when its realistic value may be closer to $75 million. All of these falsehoods were already outlined by Judge Engoron in his December 30th ruling. Now Trump must answer questions about these statements under oath. And if he lies during that deposition, that would be perjury, a separate criminal offense. He knows this. And he's afraid. This hearing was supposed to be routine. It was only meant to cover scheduling, how long the deposition would last, what subjects could be discussed, and who would ask questions. Basic courtroom procedure. But Trump arrived angry. Witnesses inside the courtroom say his face was red. He looked furious. From the moment he sat down, he began quietly muttering words like hoax, witch hunt, and rigged. Loud enough to be heard, but soft enough to test the limits. Judge Engoron noticed and warned him, "Mr. Trump, you must remain silent. This is a court of law." Trump stared at the judge, but stopped briefly. Then Letitia James's legal team began explaining why certain questions were necessary for the deposition. Trump snapped. He interrupted, saying, "That's a lie." The judge responded firmly, "Mr. Trump, you will not speak unless I give you permission." Trump leaned back. But minutes later, he interrupted again, and again, and again. 12 interruptions in total. Each time, the judge's patience wore thinner. And eventually, the courtroom reached its breaking point. And finally, after the 11th interruption, Judge Engoron had enough. He looked directly at Trump and said, "Mr. Trump, one more outburst and I will have you removed from this courtroom. This is your final warning." Trump didn't say anything. He just stared at the judge. You could see he was barely holding himself together. His face was bright red. His jaw was tight. He looked furious. Then one of Letitia James's lawyers mentioned Trump's long pattern of fraud. He stood up and shouted, "Rigged." He pointed at James's legal team and yelled, "You're all corrupt. This whole thing is rigged." Immediately, Judge Engoron signaled to the court officers. 2 bailiffs walked over to Trump, grabbed him by the arms, and began escorting him toward the door. Trump resisted, not violently, but he tried to pull away. The bailiffs had to physically guide him out of the courtroom. As they were removing him, Trump kept shouting. He yelled, "This is a disgrace. You can't do this to a president." Then the door shut behind him. The courtroom went completely silent. Everyone just sat there in shock. No one had ever seen anything like it before. A sitting president of the United States being physically removed from a courtroom. Judge Engoron looked exhausted. He took a breath and said, "This courtroom will not be turned into a circus. Mr. Trump has shown repeated disrespect for these proceedings." He then announced that Trump was being fined $10,000 for contempt of court. That fine would be added to Trump's existing judgment, which is now over $500 million with interest. The judge also made it clear the deposition is still happening on January 15th. Trump still has to appear. He still has to testify. But now, everyone knows he is completely out of control. So let's break down what this really means. Because this isn't just about Trump having a bad day in court. This is about a president who cannot control himself. A president who cannot follow basic rules. A president who is showing the country that he is unfit for office. First, let's talk about courtroom behavior. There are rules in courtrooms. You stay quiet unless you're called on. You show respect to the judge. You don't interrupt. You don't shout at lawyers. These are simple rules. Everyone understands them. Even children understand them. But Trump either can't follow these rules or refuses to. And this isn't new. During the E. Jean Carroll trial, Trump constantly made comments, rolled his eyes, sighed loudly, and disrupted the proceedings. The judge had to warn him again and again. And now, during this fraud case, it's the same behavior. Trump has been disruptive the entire time. Judge Engoron has been patient. He gave Trump multiple chances. But Trump kept pushing the limits. What happened on January 6th was the result of all of that behavior finally reaching a breaking point. Trump walked into that courtroom already angry. He knew this case was damaging him. He knew it was exposing him as a fraud. And he couldn't stand it. He hates being called a liar. He hates being held accountable. So he lashed out. He didn't care that he was in court. He didn't care how it looked. He couldn't control himself. And the date makes it even more striking. Because exactly 3 years earlier, on January 6th, Trump encouraged an insurrection. He sent a crowd to attack the Capitol. Now, 3 years later to the day, he was being dragged out of a courtroom for contempt. It feels symbolic, almost like karma, like history coming full circle. Now let's talk about what Trump was actually reacting to, because his outbursts weren't random. Letitia James's legal team was explaining what questions need to be asked during Trump's deposition. They were referencing the December 30th ruling, where Judge Engoron listed 17 separate false statements Trump made. Every time one of those lies was mentioned, Trump reacted. When they talked about the triplex apartment, Trump muttered, "That's not fraud." When they mentioned the golf course values, Trump said they were accurate. When they talked about Mar-a-Lago, Trump claimed it was worth more than $700 million. He couldn't stop himself. Every lie mentioned triggered a response from him, even though speaking out was completely inappropriate. Judge Engoron was watching all of this, and you could almost see what he was thinking. If Trump can't sit quietly during a simple scheduling hearing, how is he going to survive a deposition? Because depositions are intense. You sit across from lawyers whose job is to pressure you. They ask questions designed to provoke you, frustrate you, and make you slip up. And if Trump can't control himself in a courtroom, he's almost guaranteed to explode during a deposition. That's dangerous for him. Everything said during a deposition is under oath. Every rant, every angry outburst, every false statement can be used against him. That's likely why Trump was so agitated. He knows January 15th is coming. He knows he's going to face tough questions. And he knows that once he's under oath, there's nowhere left to hide. The questions Trump will face are serious. Questions about whether he personally approved fraudulent property values. Questions about whether he knew the numbers were false. Questions about whether he instructed his employees to lie. Trump knows the problem. If he tells the truth, he's admitting to fraud. If he lies, he's committing perjury. There is no safe answer. And Trump is scared. And when Trump gets scared, he lashes out. Now let's talk about the physical removal, because this has never happened before. We have never seen a president physically escorted out of a courtroom, and the optics are terrible for Trump. The video shows court officers grabbing Trump by the arms. Trump is resisting, not violently, but clearly not cooperating. The officers have to guide him out, almost like they're leading a child in the middle of a tantrum. Trump's face is red. He's shouting. And even as the door closes, you can still hear him yelling. That video is everywhere now. It has been viewed more than 100 million times. It's on every major news channel. It's flooding social media. Everyone is talking about it. Democrats say this proves Trump is unstable, unfit, and unable to control himself. Republicans are trying to defend him. They say he was provoked. They say the judge is biased. Because the video speaks for itself. Trump looks completely out of control. He looks like someone who has lost his grip. Trump's response was predictable. He posted on Truth Social claiming he was dragged out by deep state thugs. He said the bailiffs assaulted him. He called Judge Engoron corrupt. He said the entire situation was a setup, but nobody believes him. Because we have video. We can see exactly what happened. And what happened is simple. Trump refused to follow basic courtroom rules, and he was removed because of his own behavior. Now let's talk about the $10,000 contempt fine. This fine is on top of the more than $500 million judgment Trump already owes. And yes, $10,000 sounds small compared to $500 million, but the amount isn't the point. The message is. The judge is saying, you broke the rules of my courtroom, and there are consequences. And if Trump does it again, the penalties can increase. That includes the possibility of jail time for contempt. And that is very real. If Trump continues disrupting court proceedings, Judge Engoron can hold him in civil contempt. That allows the judge to jail him until he agrees to follow court orders. Imagine that. A president of the United States jailed for contempt of court. It sounds unbelievable, but it's legally possible. Because Trump keeps pushing limits. And judges eventually run out of patience. Now let's connect this to Trump's other problems. This courtroom meltdown isn't happening in isolation. It's happening at the same time as impeachment efforts, military pushback, and Supreme Court rulings against him. All of these crises reinforce the same narrative. Trump is unstable. Trump can't handle pressure. Trump is unfit for office. The impeachment articles specifically reference obstruction. Trump interfering with legal processes, intimidating witnesses, and attacking judges. This courtroom video becomes evidence of that. Democrats can point to it and say, look at this. He couldn't even behave in court. He had to be physically removed. How can he be trusted to run the country? That's a powerful argument. This also connects to Trump's confrontation with Admiral Halsey. In both situations, Trump was challenged by authority. The admiral challenged him over illegal military strikes. The judge challenged him over courtroom behavior. And in both cases, Trump reacted the same way. He lashed out. He got angry. He tried to assert dominance. And he failed. Instead of looking strong, he looked unstable. All of this is happening right before Trump's January 15th deposition, and now that deposition is going to be even worse for him. Because everyone knows Trump can't control himself. The lawyers questioning him will push his buttons. They'll bring up his lies. They'll challenge his statements. And Trump will explode. Everything he says will be recorded. Everything will be under oath. And everything can be used against him in other cases. There's also the question of whether Trump will even show up. He was supposed to testify back in 2021. He fought it for years. Now he's finally been ordered to appear. After being dragged out of a courtroom, will he show up on January 15th? Or will he try to delay again? Because if he doesn't appear, that's contempt. And the judge can issue an arrest warrant. That would mean a sitting president with an active arrest warrant in New York. That would be chaos. Now let's talk about what this means for Trump, his presidency, and American politics. This courtroom removal is more than an embarrassing moment. It's a symbol of Trump's complete loss of control. Start with the political impact. Trump's approval rating was already at 37% before this happened. This will make it worse. Because the footage of Trump being dragged out of a courtroom is now being used in Democratic campaign ads. And once voters see that image, it's hard to erase. Democrats are now running ads that say, "This is your president, a man who can't even control himself in a courtroom, a man who has to be physically removed because he won't follow basic rules." They end the ad with one question: is this the person you want leading the country? And that message is landing. Even people who support Trump's policies are uncomfortable watching this. They're thinking, maybe he's too unstable, maybe he needs to calm down. And that kind of doubt is dangerous for Trump. Because once supporters start questioning him, it's very hard to win them back. Republicans are now stuck in an impossible position. Some are trying to defend Trump. They say the judge provoked him. They claim the process is rigged. But it's not working. Because we have video. The video shows Trump yelling. The video shows Trump being dragged out of the courtroom. That's not something you can explain away. So most Republicans are doing nothing. They're not defending Trump. They're not criticizing him. They're staying silent and hoping this story fades. This moment is going to follow Trump forever. Now let's talk about the legal consequences. Because this courtroom removal and contempt fine are now part of Trump's official legal record, prosecutors can use this in other cases. They can say, Trump has a history of disrupting legal proceedings. He shows open disrespect for the judicial system. And that pattern supports charges like obstruction of justice. The January 15th deposition is now even more important. Trump has already shown he can't control himself under pressure. The lawyers questioning him know this. They're going to push his buttons. They're going to bring up his lies. They're going to reference Judge Engoron's ruling. And Trump is going to lose his temper. When that happens, everything he says is under oath. Everything is on the record. If he lies, that's perjury. And prosecutors can charge him. If he tells the truth, he's admitting to fraud. Either way, Trump loses. There's also the question of whether Trump can even finish the deposition. If he gets as angry as he did during the hearing, his lawyers may have to stop it. They may say, "My client needs a break. He can't continue." And that looks terrible. It makes Trump look weak, unstable, and unable to handle pressure. And it gives prosecutors even more leverage. Now let's talk about impeachment. Because this courtroom removal is evidence that Trump is unfit for office. Representative Al Green's impeachment articles include abuse of power and obstruction. This video supports those charges. It shows Trump refusing to respect legal authority. It shows him ignoring rules. It shows him acting like he's above the law. These are exactly the behaviors impeachment is meant to address. When House oversight hearings happen later in January, Democrats will play this video. They'll show Trump being dragged out of the courtroom, and they'll ask witnesses, is this the behavior of someone fit to be president? The answer will be obvious. And that's how impeachment support grows, because people can see the evidence with their own eyes. There's also growing talk about the 25th Amendment. Trump's behavior is becoming so erratic that some are questioning his mental fitness. Threatening to court-martial admirals, losing repeatedly at the Supreme Court, attacking his own appointees. This is not normal behavior. Some people inside Trump's administration are quietly asking whether the 25th Amendment should be used to declare him unable to perform his duties and make J.D. Vance the acting president. That hasn't happened yet. But if Trump keeps melting down like this, the pressure will increase. Now let's talk about public perception. This video has gone viral, over 100 million views. People are sharing it with captions like, "This is your president." Trump throws tantrum in court. Every time someone watches it, it reinforces the same idea: Trump is unstable. Trump is unfit. Trump is dangerous. And that perception is hard to change. Video evidence is powerful. You can't argue with it. You can't spin it. People see Trump being dragged out and they decide for themselves. This is especially damaging with independent voters. Independents care about stability. They want calm leadership. They want someone who follows rules and respects institutions. Trump is showing the opposite. He's volatile, he breaks rules, he attacks the system, and independents are turned off by that. That will hurt Republicans badly in 2026. Now let's connect this to the military rebellion. Just like Admiral Halsey called Trump a disgrace, Judge Engoron sent the same message without using the word. By ordering Trump removed, the judge was saying Trump's behavior was unacceptable. When both military leaders and judges signal that Trump is out of control, it creates a powerful narrative. That Trump has lost authority. That no one respects him anymore. And for a president, respect is power. All of these events are stacking on top of each other. The military confrontation, the courtroom removal, the Supreme Court losses, the impeachment push. Each one strengthens the others. Together, they create a narrative that Trump is failing and that his presidency is unraveling. And once that belief takes hold, it becomes self-fulfilling. People treat Trump as weak. That makes him weaker. Now let's talk about what happens next. Trump's deposition is scheduled for January 15th. That's just 9 days after he was dragged out of the courtroom. This is still fresh. And the lawyers questioning him will absolutely use it. They'll reference it, they'll remind him of it, they'll push him until he snaps. And whatever happens next will be recorded for everyone to see.